Britney and Andrew were big fans of sudden trips to the countryside. On weekends, they didn't like to lie in bed for long periods of time, and from early morning they would go on impromptu picnics out of town. Sometimes curiosity and thirst for exploring new places took the young family away from the cozy home. Such was the case on that unfortunate day, the day their car broke down on a deserted road. And as luck would have it, both their cell phones were dead and the chargers were left at home. The trouble with us is that we always rely on luck, Andrew said with a sigh. What do we do now? Britney, who at that moment felt terribly guilty about her forgetfulness and inattention, cautiously remarked, "There must be a small village nearby. Nowadays, even in the most remote villages, people have cell phones. The main thing is to get to the village in the dark." I like your optimism. Andrew frowned. The tone with which the man said the last sentence clearly conflicted with the meaning of each word. Like it or not, we have no other choice. We're stuck in this God-forsaken place. Now our only option is to get to a phone. And then we'll call our friends for help. We need to climb up that hill and look around. So they did. But they were not relieved by what they saw. The steppe stretched all around. The sun was rapidly sinking below the horizon, coloring the sparse clouds purple. The hot summer day was replaced by a languid evening, soaked with the scents of thyme and bitter wormwood. The sun-heated earth was cooling down. Lulled by the twilight coolness, it was preparing for sleep. But our heroes did not want to spend the night in the steppe. They wished with all their hearts to be in a warm bed and fall asleep in each other's arms under the ticking of the wall clock. "Yep," Andrew said sadly. "We're going to spend the night in the open air. Good thing tomorrow's Sunday, so we don't have to go to work." Britney grinned angrily. She peered warily into the fading twilight, hoping for a tiny glimmer of hope. And yet luck had not abandoned our wretches. At a distance of 3 kilometers, a barely perceptible pillar of light flashed. A dim beacon for lost travelers. "Do you see it too?" Britney asked. "I see it," Andrew said with undisguised joy. "I wonder what it is." "It doesn't matter. Let's go. If there's light, there must be people there." They hurried in the direction of the light source. It was good that there was an old flashlight in the car, which could only shine a couple of meters ahead. But even that was enough. The young men walked briskly toward the beacon of salvation, and soon they saw a rather interesting picture. Drowning in the darkness of night, a lonely house stood in a lined clearing. A dim light burned in the uncurtained windows. This doll's house most likely had only one room. 2 short figures slowly moved around their humble dwelling. Most likely, this house was inhabited by elderly people. But why would they drag their existence in proud loneliness? Did our heroes want to know the answer to this question? I don't think so. Britney and Andrew were only interested in resolving the issue with the broken car that they had abandoned in the middle of the steppe as soon as possible. There were no other structures near the house, but on the approach to the lonely cabin, the young men noticed a strange thing. The dim beam of the pocket flashlight could not provide a complete picture, only separate fragments. Fragments of the inanimate world. My God, it's a cemetery. The cemetery next to the house, Britney exclaimed in horror. The caretakers of the old cemetery must live here, Andrew concluded. I can't believe there are still people buried here, though. The couple cautiously approached the graves. The sparse, gnarled crosses and weedy graves had not been cared for a long time. They froze, staring out over the decades of the lunar world, guarding the peace of those who were hidden beneath the loose layer of earth. What kind of story are we in for this time? Britney asked quietly. None, Andrew boldly declared. We're going to knock on the house and ask for help. The man stepped confidently to the front door and knocked insistently. After a couple of seconds, there was the creaking of floorboards, the shuffling of old shoes, and the grunting of an elderly man. Who is there? Hoarse voice announced the summer night. Excuse me, please. My name is Andrew, and my wife Britney is with me. Our car broke down and our cell phones are dead. Can I use your cell phone?" The door creaked open. A shaggy gray head emerged from the room. The elderly man gave the strangers a stern look. "Is the car broken down?" He grinned. "Yes." Andrew waved his hands. "We don't have cell phones." Without lowering his tone, the old man said, "Eric, what kind of man are you?" A cheerful old woman's voice came from behind the house owner. "Invite people into the house. You see, they are in trouble." The old man squinted angrily and gestured for the guests to enter. Britney and Andrew found themselves in a tiny room that served as both a kitchen and a bedroom for two people. The worn furniture, old dishes, and sparse furnishings in the room testified to the hardships of a life of solitude. Kerosene lamp, the main source of light, stood on the table. The fire in the stove crackled in the corner. The aroma of spicy herbs mingled with the acrid smell of burning and wooden logs. "And you keep up with the times," Andrew said with humor. "Very funny," snapped at the old man. "We live as we can. We don't touch anyone." "My husband didn't mean to offend you," Britney remonstrated. "It must be hard to live away from the city in such conditions." "We're not complaining. We have someone to stand up for us." The old man furrowed his brow and clenched his fists angrily. "Eric, what are you talking about?" His wife shook her hands. She was a short, thin woman with clear blue eyes. She looked at Britney carefully, her gaze lingering on her stomach. Lena felt goosebumps run down her spine at that moment. "We have to help them, Eric," the older woman said insistently. "How can we help them?" wheezed the old man. "Shall we send them to the cemetery for the night?" A prickly chill ran down the backs of our adventurers. Andrew again relied on his sense of humor and said, "I'm afraid we won't be comfortable in the cemetery. The bed is hard and the neighbors are not friendly." The old man glared. Andrew recoiled in horror. "You shouldn't joke like that, kid." The old man wagged his index finger in front of Andrew's face. "I've lived here for God knows how many years. I know this cemetery better than anyone. Don't anger the spirits, especially after sunset. We should probably go back to the car," Britney said cautiously. "Yeah, let them go," waved his hand at the angry old man. "No way," protested the older woman. "It's getting late. You'd better stay in the house, especially you." She took Britney's hand affectionately. At night, the spirits of the cemetery prowl the steppe in search of prey. The old woman continued, "Our house is protected. You'll be safe here. But beyond the threshold, anything can happen there." The old man snorted angrily, staring at the fire. The shadows outside the windows danced a bizarre dance in the flickering light. Could it really be that the souls of the dead were so close to the house and trying their best to get in? "At night I sing a lullaby to the undead," whispered the old woman. "You don't know, but in this cemetery there are buried people who have done bad things in their lifetime. There is no rest for them in the next world. Eric and I are like guards. We make sure the souls don't get stoned." "Why are you telling them all this?" Eric growled. "We don't have enough to worry about. Don't shout. They'll hear you. And you," the woman turned to the guests again. "Sit near the wall and close your eyes." Britney and Andrew, intrigued, sat down on a rickety wooden bench closer to the stove. The warmth of the hearth enveloped them from head to toe. The old woman lit a bundle of wormwood and sang a lullaby. It was a smooth, dragging song. A song that had no open-work rhymes or ornate metaphors. The words flowed in a pearly stream and settled on the roof, walls, and floor of the house. The old woman's singing was picked up by the ghosts whispering unintelligible words behind the walls. Britney and Andrew, holding hands, felt their presence and the urge to grasp onto the consciousness of a living person. But the song prevented them from doing so. The song warned, guided, appealed to the best qualities of the dead. They listened to a lullaby that sang of another life. A life that the dead could have lived, but all us did not. Their pale faces flashed in the memory of the universe, blurred by the pain and recriminations of those they had harmed. They listened to the sad lullaby until dawn, and then slowly crept back to the graves, where they hid until the next night. Andrew awoke with the first rays of the sun. The owner of the house stepped outside, letting the cool morning air into the room. The old witch sat across from him, her head tilted slightly to the side. "Take care of your wife," she said quietly. "You'll have a lot more to worry about now." Andrew stared at the old woman. She only laughed a little. "Tonight is your lucky night. But don't come to these parts again without need. We're used to everything. But you, young and quick, sometimes it's better to know less than you should." Britney woke up and stared at the old witch in surprise. "I'll make you some tea to dull your memories. Drink up and go to the car. Help will be here soon." Then she silently poured the tea into mugs. The bitter, smoky flavor hit my nostrils, and after that there was peace. As they left the cabin, Britney and Andrew cast a wary glance toward the cemetery. It didn't look threatening now in the rising sunlight. The cemetery was a cemetery like thousands scattered across the land. But only two men knew the secret of those burials. A secret they would keep until their last breath. They thanked each other for their hospitality and walked back to the car. Britney turned around a couple of times and waved goodbye to the finicky old man and the good sorceress who had saved their lives. After a while, the lonely house near the cemetery disappeared, as if it had fallen under the ground. In the new day, there was no place for darkness and gloom, only hope for good and good things. There was another one standing by their broken-down car. A tall young man eyed the abandoned car with curiosity. However, after a brief conversation, he realized that the car had not been left behind willingly. Britney and Andrew got home late that afternoon. The events of the previous night turned into distant memories, in which sounded the long lullaby of an old witch, whose name they never asked. A week later, Britney learns of her first long-awaited pregnancy, and a wonderful time comes in her and Andrew's life.